thank you for the organisers of IDF for inviting us over. This is my first time to India, so it's quite a shock to arrive in Mumbai. I'm going to start off giving you about a 3-minute history of Pentagram. Considering we're 41 years old, that might be quite a tall order. And then Will and I are going to do a bit of tag with each other with our presentations, but you'll get the gist of it, of how we go through this. So Pentagram, as I said, was started in 1972 by 5 guys. Architect Theo Crosby on the left, Kenneth Grange, product designer, and 3 graphic designers, Colin Forbes, Mervyn Kalansky, and Alan Fletcher. We are now 19 partners worldwide. This was at our last meeting in London in November. We have offices in London, New York, Berlin, Austin, Texas, and San Francisco. I think, to me, I mean, Will and I are one of the sort of newest partners in London. I've been there 6 years, Will 7 years. And I think the most intriguing thing as an incoming partner is the multidisciplinary idea of the philosophy of Pentagram. And it's almost like going back to college, art college, where you're sort of sharing ideas. So there are graphic designers, there's communication designers, there's architects, there's product designers. And this makes for a challenging environment. We are constantly looking at other people's work in the studio. And I think as a designer, it sort of helps you raise the bar. When I first joined, somebody sort of said, why? And I said, it's like joining your favorite football team because it just makes you better. I mean, I would choose Chelsea, he might choose Liverpool or something. But it makes you actually more competitive and actually experience design in a I think, far more productive way. We all run our teams independently. And again, when I joined, Paula Scher said to me, who's a partner in New York, she said, the whole point about Pentagram is a platform to run your business, how you want to run your business, in the way you want to run your business. So we all work sort of quite independent of each other. We all work quite differently, the graphic designers as opposed to the architects. But the whole philosophy comes together through the work. The work is what keeps us all as a partnership. So twice a year we get together in May and November in different parts of the world, and it's all about sharing of ideas. We have no new business department, we have no managing directors, we have no non-designers as partners. So all the partners are the designers and the designers are the partners. And I think that will never change. I think the final thing is that, and I think some of that work sort of showed, is it's as much about commerce projects as it is about cultural projects, and vice versa. We're we're not financially driven. So I'm going to now hand over to Will, who's going to explain a bit how we're going to present 2 designers.
Okay, so when Dom and I sat down over a beer and decided, or tried to work out how we would do this, and it was obvious we would only have 15 minutes each, we thought we'd just do 5 projects each of our own work in an effort to try and show the breadth of the kind of work that we are lucky enough to be involved in Pentagram. So it became 5 things that we know. Number 1, work with people who are better than you. For me, this is Alexander McQueen. I was lucky enough to know Lee McQueen for a long time, and I've worked very closely with him for about 10 years, designing his shops. I've done stores all over the world, and it was an amazing journey that we went on together as he was building Alexander McQueen as a kind of a multinational, iconic brand. He was dragging me along with him, and I was helping create the spaces for his amazing clothes. This is my favorite store, I think, which is the LA store. And we actually got to form the building as well as create the interiors. I mean, normally we had the concept and we have to kind of shoehorn it into the space that was given, and here we got to make the building itself. This is the entrance space. And Lee always wanted to bring in additional bits of design. So here we collaborated, well, he commissioned an artist to create a 9-foot stainless steel man, which was kind of levitating half in and half out of the store. The sculpture is actually broken at the breastbone, but as you walk into the space, you look up and you see this as a kind of an amazing kind of centerpiece to the store. And then the interior, the concept was based on a thought that the store should be a solid block which was carved out. We always talked about creating an ethereal cave. So the floors and walls and ceilings are very fluidly linked with each other. And the shelves and the benches, everything is meant to flow as a single piece. Here you can see the display elements that are hanging down from the ceiling. There's a band. The white material becomes translucent and emits light at certain stages. And then this is a little concession in Selfridges, which was completed just after his death, where we started looking at creating pieces of furniture, new hanging rails, and tables, which were in the same language.
So I've been working with a landscape architect called Joe Gibbons for, I think, since the mid-90s. She's an amazing practitioner. And then a few years ago, she asked me to design an anniversary book for her 20th anniversary. And it became, again, like Will's project, a journey with Jo to express her process and the way she, as a landscape architect, worked. And to recognize the 20 years, we actually had an open-bound book. All the paper was recycled, virgin board. We actually divided the sections into 20 sections, so everything had a logic and a reason for the structure. I mean, as with her work, what she always says to me is, the thing about a landscape architect is that the work keeps on evolving even after they've sort of left it. So we wanted to sort of keep that feeling going through the typography and the exploration of the book itself. This is a very small format book. So we used blind embossing. It was all about the textures, all about the experience of a publication that would reflect her practice. So again, typographically, we sort of broken up with all the typography, and then we had a series of color codes for the different sections of her book. I think in terms of the structure itself, I've always been interested in, typographically, the interaction of layers of typography. So you can see there how the type connects with each other. The one constant in the book are the page numbers. If I just go back one, on the top right-hand side, that was the only consistent element in the whole book. Every other spread, and there's about something like 200 spreads, are all individually designed. So here you've got a large bleed on the left, a small on the right, and it's just the folio and the caption are the constant elements. And the experience with Jo is that some of the images didn't quite mean anything, but to her they meant a lot because the practice was so important to her. So it was just about reflection of her process and her sort of personality.
Keep things simple. This is Matter, which is, I think, London's largest nightclub. And it actually came into the job as a graphic design project. And one of my partners picked up and did the identity and all the graphic design. And I managed to get in there and say, well, I can design the interiors as well. It's over 3 floors. There's a capacity of 3,000 people. There's one main space, which is the dance floor, which is over 3 levels. And then there's a room 2, which is round the back. It's in the Millennium Dome, the kind of iconic circus tent designed by Richard Rogers. And this is the identity used as the entrance portal. It's the only space within the dome that has its own entrance. This is the main dance floor. You can see the 3 layers. On the left is the stage for the live performance, and on the right is the DJ booth. And the floor, which is about just over 100 square meters, has about 80 transducers underneath it, so it becomes an actual bass speaker, the whole floor. So you step off the concrete onto this extraordinary kind of floor. The brief, and that's how the space changes. The brief really was, he wanted a really simple container. The client was Keith Riley, who runs Fabric, which is another iconic club in London. And he wanted this incredibly simple interior where it acts as a container for the night's events. The materiality is nearly exclusively concrete, and everything is grey. When the house lights are on and the cleaning lights are on, everything is just completely monochrome. But obviously, with the use of LED lighting and projectors and other lights, the spaces really come to life when it's being used. So it's this kind of this container for the event that happens, and it's a different event every night. This is the gallery space upstairs. This is room 2, where the materiality changed a little bit, obviously staying monochrome, but we have backlit panels of galvanized steel mixed in with the concrete and a zinc-clad bar. And then at the very top, there was a whole floor for VIP, and this is their little dance floor, private little dance floor at the top of the club, where we have panels of light in the floor, and then a massive plasma screen above each one, showing images and video. And this is essentially the palette of materials when the lights are out. So this is the greys of the concrete. The benches I designed myself to go with the rest of the interior. But obviously it can be dressed up for whatever event they want to hold there. This is it being prepared for a big awards evening. But it was always at its best when it was absolutely full of 3,000 people jumping up and down.
Okay, my next project, this is quite a new project, University of Arts London. This is their old identity, which when I met them, I sort of said, what do you feel about it? And everybody hated it. Nobody sort of liked the colors, nobody liked the angles. It started off as a designer project, and then a corporate company took it over. So it was a very unloved identity project. But one of the issues about University of Arts is that the colleges are very powerful and have strong personalities within London, but the university is this sort of unloved parent. And this is how I sort of, when I first met them, I said, you're like a warring family. You're a bunch of siblings and quite dysfunctional. But they all think they're better than the other. So I had to sort of try to find a solution that gave the university some presence, but also the colleges some presence. So one of the first things we all agreed on, and it was a collective agreement, is that the title University of Arts London is very long, and everybody sort of felt they could move away from that. So we simplified everything to UAL, even though there's a transition period with this identity. So the idea came down to just calling it UAL with a colon. The colon is actually very important. The colon is a graphic device which shows the links between the university and the college. What we then proposed was this simple lockup, which would eventually, and will this year start to disappear, is that the full title gets will drop off eventually. But we gave them basically a simple lockup. The whole point about this solution, why it's sort of so simple, is that I was not designing an identity for the colleges. This is an identity for the university, which allows the colleges still to have an individuality through their own graphic expression. So my role, and this is what I wanted it to be, was not to do every piece of graphic design from each of those colleges. It was just to give a framework. Because what was really apparent is that their old logo just disappeared in comparison to other universities around the world. This mark had about solidity and about confidence and about boldness. So the next stage, which is being implemented this year, and this sort of slide, in a way, made it for the colleges, because the colleges always, as I said at the beginning, always felt inferior to the UAL or university part. By doing this and by actually just being able to switch the colors around, it gave the colleges a visual presence. So what we've been doing over the last year is all the applications. This is showing how the colon became a strong device. It's used on letterheads, back of letterheads, used on literature, bags, badges. We have done some of the actual literature to start them off. But the anchor is always just the top left-hand corner is where the identity sits. What the colleges do within that space is up to them. So it's actually about, I think, the designers, as in myself and my team, pulling back, not trying to solve every problem. I mean, some of the signage is just showing how the square idea comes into toilet signs, and we're working on the online experience at the moment. And this is some of the work the colleges have done for themselves. So they can use any typeface, any imagery, anything they like, as long as our identity is in the top left-hand corner. Very simple and very direct.
Never stop experimenting, number 3. Acrasia. So this is a project I've been working on for quite a while now. And the site is in West Africa, pretty much on the equator. And it came into the office because the client used to frequent the club I just showed you. And what he wanted to do was build a nightclub in his hometown in Africa. This is the site here on the beach. And from being just a nightclub project within this kind of extraordinary garden, it has grown into being almost a mini resort. So currently the plan is like this. Oh, it's bleeding out a bit. But so there's the site is divided in two, pretty much here, where there's a kind of a public zone, where there's a nightclub and a beach restaurant that serves people on the beach. And then the other half is the garden with the main restaurant and reception, 5 little cabanas for people to stay in, a swimming pool and deck, a spa, and a little hammam. So it's a very complex, actually, project for myself. And I'm on a limited or an appointment where I've done all my work now, and I've handed over my project to the local team, kind of a mirror team over there. And construction is just starting on site now. These drawings are not working out very well. This is the beach elevation with the nightclub, and then the pool and the cabanas and the spa. This is a section through the site. It falls gently down towards the sea. This is the restaurant space again, down to the pool. And then these are just some concept sketches. So this would be the main entrance from the street into the car parking zone. This would be the main restaurant, which is like a pavilion in the garden. It's on 3 sides. It's glazed with this kind of structured roof, timber. We tried very much to to design it in the language or in the materiality that is available in the country. And like most countries, it's concrete, but they have an extraordinary amount of natural hardwood timbers. So we've used that wherever we can. This is a sketch of one of the bars in the nightclub. This is a staircase going up to the VIP floor in the nightclub. And this is the beach kiosk, which serves not only people who are part of the kind of more private resort, but everyone else on the beach. And then each of the cabanas are being decorated in a very high luxury way, and each one has a slightly different theme. This is just a sketch of one of them. And like I say, I've handed over a package, I think just over 300 drawings we made, trying to describe this in as much I mean, the appointment, I think I went way beyond what my appointment was actually due in terms of providing information, but it became kind of almost an obsession to keep producing more drawings and describe more and more. And this is just a sequence of the nightclub building.
This is something I've been working on since 1999. It's a magazine for an organisation in London called the Typographic Circle, which is basically the type directors club there. And I've been basically doing their magazine. I do 1 issue every 18 months. So my approach to this is, because it has no advertising, I can do whatever I like. There's no format. It changes format. There's no one typeface. I change the typefaces. I change the papers all the time. So for me, as a designer, it's something I can slightly indulge myself, but I'm also the target audience. So I've always treated this as, is this the sort of thing I would like to get myself? So as I said, talking about the playfulness, this is from the first issue I did in 1999, where there's an article on total design, and I split the name of the company between the pages. I mean, to me, I've always loved magazines, even since I was at college, so it's all about turning pages. It's like a book. It should engage all the way through. This is an article in issue 12, which is a large A3 format, unbound, an article on an English design company called Why Not Associates. So I just sort of, over 3 spreads, used their name as the whole title. And they had created a path in a seaside resort in England. So I actually put the path through the title, and then that carries on into the visual spreads. I've also designed posters for every issue. So as I say, it's more about me continuing at the tender age of 50 to be still playing with typography and still experimenting. This was issue 15, where, again, I sort of wanted to reduce everything down to sort of a minimum amount of colors. So this is an article on an English art director called Trevor Beattie. So I reduced his name to the B and the T. And then the spreads at the bottom, again, I'm always sort of fascinated how folios, page numbers, are just arbitrarily placed somewhere. So they actually became an important device within the magazine, and then it was just a purity of 1 or 2 colors. And then most recently, which only came out last year, I wanted to do a magazine about typography with no typography in it. So this is the outcome, where we just filled every spread with work with no text. So it's a non-typographic magazine.
Don't be afraid of having little time or small budgets. The project I'm going to show on this is an exhibition I designed in the Tate Modern, where we were incredibly constrained on the time for the install and the removal. But at the same time, they wanted to make a very large exhibition. So it was a representation of the previous summer's Venice Biennale, which was curated by Ricky Burdett, and it was about the growing urbanization of humanity. But we had to limit the cities from, I think Ricky had 20, we cut it down to 10, and we divided it down into 5 zones. This, I guess, is the whole point of the exhibition. The 2007 was a turning point where, for the first time, more than half of humanity is living in an urban environment rather than a rural environment. And it was looking at the growth of cities in terms of size, speed, density, form, and diversity. And it's in the second, I don't know if any of you know the Turbine Hall. This is a massive public room connected to the Tate Modern. And this is underneath the bridge. So there are 2 ways in. One is down that ramp at the beginning, and the second way in is across the new Millennium Bridge across the Thames and in onto this bridge level. So you've got the 2, those were the 2 kind of first views of the exhibition. And mixed in with this very heavy information about growth of cities and speed of cities was, which is kind of a macro view, was a micro view of artists and their impressions of what these cities are actually like to be in. And a lot of that was done through film. So we had to create, I think there were 7 little dark rooms, boxes, as part of the exhibition to show the video art. But we then, in collaboration with one of my other partners who did all the graphics, plastered or posted around the side of each of these boxes all the information that the show was pertaining to. The decision then was, how can we build this incredibly fast and get it out very fast? And we very quickly decided that scaffolding was the way to go. And this allowed us to create all these boxes very fast. Everything was prefabricated and just offered up to the scaffolding framework once it was there. And we also opened a whole new kind of circulation route from the bridge that goes across the turbine hall, kind of across the top of the boxes to a new staircase at the far end. So these are some views of what it was like actually in amongst these building-sized boxes. This is the density zone where we designed a little piece of furniture. We commissioned these density models, which are made out of plywood. I think this is Mumbai here, which along with Cairo is the most densely populated city in the world. And then this is the view from the top. These are a close-up of those little models and the graphics with very simply kind of pasted up onto the panels around the boxes. And it mixed large photography of cities with the artists, much smaller pieces by artists. And this is a tiny little film of the actual, see if it runs, which of the first, I think this is the entire installation, but I'll stop it after the first day or two. But just to show how fast the scaffolding can come in and be erected. You can create very large spaces or very large objects very fast. And another added bonus is, of course, it's totally recyclable. It all gets reused again. Okay, so that's about the first 3 days of installation.
This is a project I did for Shelter, who are the UK's homeless charity. I had no budget for this, so this is a completely pro bono project. So I was approached by the advertising company called Leo Burnett to help them with a specific campaign. They had developed this poster and video campaign all around a theme called House of Cards, which obviously is a metaphor for the collapsing nature of the housing situation in the UK. And they had amazing these films and posters. And what they wanted to do was actually design a pack of playing cards using 54 images from artists and designers from the UK, auction the original artwork off, raise money for Shelter, and they wanted me to do the identity and packaging. And I have to admit, I mean, we did this in a week, and I actually did it whilst I was on holiday in Portugal and my team were back in London, and it almost designed itself. It was one of those projects where everything just worked really simply. We basically took the icon of the house, which is also from the Shelter identity. We then took the symbols from a set of playing cards, and as we all know, the wonderful thing about playing cards is that every time you turn them around, they still work. And the nice thing about doing this idea with the symbol of the house is that it reflects the metaphor about the falling of houses or the House of Cards. We then extended this idea onto a pattern using all the sets of the cards. And this led us to designing the symbol, which is just using the H with all the symbols combined inside. In terms of the logo type, again, we just did very small typographic tweaks to the E and the F and the A. So it's quite understated, and then we applied this to a variety of applications. So the invitation to the event, which was at the Haunch of Venison in Piccadilly in London, was a playing card, so it worked again both ways. The catalogue just used the pattern, which is again a reflection of the reverse of a playing card. And this was just showing all the work. So the first piece of work was by Damien Hirst. They raised £100,000 for Shelter, and it was a success. And I mean, it was a collaboration between, I think, us and Leo Burnett. We then did the packaging. This is a sort of outsize. It was an actual pack of playing cards. It's A5 size. And then we did a poster. So again, the beautiful thing about the posters, it was one of those things with no budget, no time, you can still do something. And finally,
we're very lucky at Pentagram to have some fantastic clients that we work with. But this one was with my wife. So this is a house we built. She's also an architect, so it was kind of a collaboration. In London's East End, just off Brick Lane, the site was a small rectangular space about 6.5 meters by 9.5 meters, which was a little car park south-facing on Bacon Street. And what we built was a concrete framed structure with clad in a very limited amount of different materials. We had glass, galvanized steel, and a rubberized roofing membrane, and that essentially was the palette for the whole house. So this is the south front elevation. There was a small apartment separated for the basement and ground floor. The bedrooms and bathroom were on the first floor, and the living space and roof terrace were at the top to get as much sunlight as possible. This massive window, which is 5.5 meters by 2 meters, actually slides open across the facade and opens up the living room to the sun. This is the view from the rear. So these are the three materials that it's clad in, essentially: the galvanized steel, glass, and the rubberized roofing material that wraps down the back, the north elevation. This is a view looking in up the front steps. And the interior we left very much as struck a raw concrete interior. This is the staircase, so it had a very kind of earthy rawness to it, which we really enjoyed. This is the main living room space. So this is the big sliding window which opens up. We integrated panels of lighting, and then the roof terrace is up here, and that all folds open as well. So actually during the summer, when it's actually, it's not that hot in London, we really enjoy the sun when it happens. You can open virtually the whole house up, and it almost feels like you're in a courtyard rather than a living room. And then as we kind of occupied it, we added things when we could afford it. So we started the kitchen came in next. And we started adding warmer materials like the timber veneer and this red lacquered kitchen cabinetry. And you start to get these really lovely plays of hard and soft materials. This is the kitchen counter. And then this is the terrace up the top of the house with it all folded open. It was an amazing house. So we've now moved on, and I miss it terribly.
Well, I'm going to whiz through this one. I do all the work for the London Design Festival for the last 7 or 8 years. So it's one of these briefs where I have to use just red, which is my suggestion. They own that. And every year I've got to come up with a new typographic, visual way of expressing the festival's direction. We often come up with the themes, as with this, be bold, make a statement. And thank you. This was year before last. I mean, this wasn't done in Photoshop. This was just done out of folding paper. And that's it.